257.
Okay, 257. Okay, brilliant. So if you've got any questions, or are we okay? 57. Okay. Let's make a start, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam taslima. Verses 257 to 261. So on the 8th of the month, you go out to Mina, and you stop at Arafat on the 9th. You take a ghusl before Zawal, and you should be present at the two khutbahs when the two prayers are combined and shortened. 259, Dhuhri, you should be at the mountain, and if you can, on let me get the translation, it's much better. Translating poetry off top of your head isn't something that I'm really good at. Okay. 257. On the 8th of the month, go out to Mina and dismount at Arafah on the 9th. Take a ghusl just after the sun has passed its zenith. Attend the two khutbahs and join and shorten the salats. That's 258. 259 of Dhuhr and Asr. Then ascend the mountain, mounted and in a state of wudu. 260, persevere in making dua, saying La ilaha illallah, humbly supplicating, sending blessings on the Prophet while facing the Qibla. 261, stand a little while after the sunset, and then hasten to Muzdalifah, making your way. Okay. Inshallah. So Sidi Meyara comments on this, that after speaking about the tawaf and the sa'i, what's presented here are the actions for the pilgrim after that. So the command from the tawaf, which is the qadum, and the sa'i, is for people who are not residents of Medina, people who are coming from outside of Medina, or someone who has not done the tawaf when they have been in a state of ihram from Mecca, or someone who has come from the miqat, the beginning of the sanctuary, and is a latecomer. Then on the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, which is known as, the day of Taraweeh, they make their way to Mina, saying the Talbiyah with, a medium loudness. And when they reach, Salatul Dhuhr, they delay it to the end of the Mukhtar time, the Ikhtiyari time. And it's makruh to do it before that or after it, unless, there is a valid excuse. You descend and you spend the rest of the night there praying Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib and Isha and Subh, all of these prayers within their times, shortening the 4 rakats, unless they are people of Mina, meaning residents. The sunnah is that you go out to Mina, from Mina to on the day of Arafah until the sun has risen. So if you go out when the sun has risen to Arafah, you descend, you stop at Nimra. That's where the masjid is, the masjid of Nimra. When it is close to Zawal, you take a ghusl, the same type of ghusl when you entered Mecca, meaning that, it's only literally you're throwing water on your body. You're not rubbing or anything. So it's the same type when you entered Mecca. And once the Zawal begins, you make your way to the Masjid of Nimra and you stop the Talbiyah. Then the Imam, after the Zawal, will give a khutbah. Two khutbahs, he'll sit in between them, the khutbah of the Hajj. He will make people aware of what actions they have to do from that time till, the second day of slaughter. Then people will pray Dhuhr and Asr combined and shortened. For each salat, there will be an adhan and an iqama. Those who are not present with the Imam, they will still combine and shorten, in their own tents. If they left, even if they left, attending the mosque without an excuse. The people of Arafah, the residents of Arafah, they will complete their prayers. They'll pray Dhuhr 4 rakats and Asr 4 rakats. After the prayer, the Imam and the people, they will make their way to, the standing at Arafah. And the whole plain of Arafah is the mawqif. You can stand anywhere. The best place is where the Imam is. Nowadays, from a practical point of view, you can't get near the Imam due to, the security that is there. The most superior standing is, in your mount. Nowadays, you can't take your animal or your cart transport to the plain. So you'll be literally standing or sitting, because all of Arafah is the mawqif. Yeah. Why mounted on your mount is the most superior is because the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam did that. Except, if there is an excuse for you not to. Again, as I said, nowadays there's no way you can take your own animals or your transport. The standing is the most superior from sitting, and sitting, if you get tired, so you'll sit. So if you're tired, and then you'll stand up again. For the women, sitting is fine. For the standing, you should be in a state of wudu, facing the Qibla, and these are the superior actions. Imam Ibn Shaban, he's of the opinion that we should say in abundance, the dhikr of La ilaha illallah, wahdahu la sharika lah, lahul mulk wa lahul hamd, wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir. And you shouldn't stop doing that, and you should continue facing the Qibla with, humility, and do an abundance of dhikr and dua and salat on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam until you are certain the sun has set. Because, the standing of Arafah and standing there till, it goes into the night of Eid is a rukn. So you will stand there making sure, not just, quickly, as soon as you realize that, the, what's it called? The sun has set. Don't rush. Wait till it gets a bit dark. Once you are certain the sun has set, and then move. Yeah. And then you move 261. Then you move to, Muzdalifah. So only once you are certain, you don't pray Maghrib. So from after having prayed Dhuhr and Asr, you are standing in the plain of Arafah. Ideally, my advice would be, doesn't matter what package that you have paid for, even if it's, a first class package where you've got, air conditioning and everything in your tent. Leave the tent, go and stand close to, the mountain of mercy as possible, and literally pour your heart out to God. You are literally in the presence of God. The only way I can explain to you what that day is, from Zawal till sunset, those hours are literally when, if you can imagine, the mercy of Allah as an ocean, and there's, a dam that's holding the whole ocean back. So from after you've prayed till into after sunset, the dam breaks, and the whole ocean of mercy, just flows onto the people that are at the Mount of Arafah. So it's literally, from, the time you stood till you leave Arafah, you're literally like, a newborn child. Everything that you had has been literally, your hard drive's been cleaned. Your account has been totally wiped out, and you're beginning anew. So once the sun has set and you are sure the sun has set, then you move to Muzdalifah. So we move on to verses 262 to 268. So verse 262 reads, between the two mountains, which are called Mazamain, avoiding any other way, and then shorten and join Maghrib and Isha. 263, dismount and spend the night there, filling it with dhikr and salat. Pray your sub salat and then move off as light starts to break. 264, stand and make dua at the mash'ar before sunrise, and make haste at the bottom of the Wadi an-Nar. 265, go as you are to Al-Aqaba and throw the 7 pebbles there. 266, from below, having brought them along with you from Muzdalifah, about the size of chickpeas. Sacrifice the hadi, the sacrificial animal, if at Arafah. Then 267, if you have stopped, then shave, continue to the house and perform the tawaf al-ifada, praying 2 rakats as described before. 268, No, sorry, 267. Yeah, that's where we are, 267. Now, Sidi Meyara's comment on this chunk of 262 to 267 is that when you are certain, he says, تحقق غروب الشمس, that you need to be sure that the sun has set on the day of Arafah, then the Imam and the people, again, what happens today is you don't see the Imam, and people will usually return to their coaches. But this is what happens. Uh, my advice again would be, if you know what you are doing, don't return back to your coach. From Arafah, just walk to Muzdalifah. You're looking at, literally, small pace, not, rushing, just a decent pace. You're looking at 20 minutes to half an hour. And if you return to, the transport, that because the government looks after the logistics, you will be sitting in one of the worst traffic jams that you've sat in your life. So my advice again will be, don't just make your way from the mountain of mercy, from Arafah to Muzdalifah, and they're adjacent to each other. When you move with, calm. You have to be calm and dignified. There shouldn't be any rush. And once you find, your way, then, you make your way to, you pass through. Muzdalifah is a valley between two mountains, which are called, the mountains are called Mazamin. So you pass through them into Muzdalifah. On the way, you keep, doing abundance of dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You delay your Maghrib Salat till you reach Muzdalifah. When I was there last, it was in 2012, and I saw, at Muzdalifah, not at Muzdalifah, at Arafah, a Malaysian group, reading a Maghrib at Arafah. No, you delay it. You don't, once the time you show that the sun has set, you make your way to Muzdalifah. And the Isha again is shortened, unless you are a resident of Muzdalifah. For each prayer, there is adhan and iqama. If you can pray with the Imam, again, I'm just going with the text. As I said, you will not even see the Imam after Nimra, after the khutbah of Hajj. So once you arrive at Muzdalifah, if you're not, too hungry, you begin with the prayer. If you're hungry, if you've got something, there's a lot of free food and water that gets given. So Imam Malik radhiallahu anhu, he says it's fine if you delay the prayer a little, because in those days they would have their own mounts, their own camels, and if you needed to, tie them up, and then you would pray. Imam Malik says there's no problem with that, and he was fine if you took something very light. So you prayed Maghrib and you ate something, and then you prayed Isha. After the prayers, you spend, you stay till Salatul Subh, and it's Sunnah to do that. If you do not stay, and again, due to physical health and a lot of the elderly end up not being able to spend the night in the open due to health reasons. So they will have to uh, pay, meaning that they'll have to sacrifice an animal. It's recommended to bring the night alive with worship. Um, this, if you've, it's very difficult, unless even if you're super fit, you do need some rest because you've been standing most of the day at Arafah, then you've walked to Muzdalifah. A lot of people get drained. So after Isha, rest. If you wake up, then fine. Um, so it's recommended that you pray Salatul Subh. So you get up right when the time begins, and you pray the prayer, and then you go and stand at the Mash'ar al-Haram, facing the Qibla. The Mash'ar should be on, your right. Again, if you've got, a good Hajj guide, they will tell you exactly where it is. Um, uh, Otherwise, you'll pray Subh and they'll take you to the end of the Muzdalifah. You keep saying the takbir and you keep petitioning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you keep making dua until it gets asfar. Asfar is, the time, the sun has still not risen, but when it is near the time of sunrise, everything goes clear. So the darkness lifts. So you keep doing that till, the darkness lifts. Then, because it's become light, but the sun has not risen, you pick up 7 stones, chickpea size, from Muzdalifah, because those are going to be used to stone. The rest of the stones, you don't have to pick from Muzdalifah. Some people will, just for the convenience of it, because you need, again, 7 is all you need to do, because you don't need to be carrying something that you don't need to carry with you. So some people will take 21, but on the first day you only need to stone 1. So you only need 7 of the stones. Once it near sunrise, when it's near sunrise, you leave Muzdalifah to the Muhassir, and you walk quickly. And this is it says Wadi an-Nar, the valley of fire. It's actually marks the area where Abraha, when he came with the camels, it's if you can, if you're brave enough to come back and have a look, you can actually, the tracks that the elephants made, because there was quite a few elephants that came 1400 years ago. It's the stone has still gone down in the valley. You can come back and have a look if you are brave. That's the reason why you hurry through that area, because the wrath of God came down on them. Once you reach Mina, by this time, the sun has fully risen. You come to, the Jumratul Aqaba, and you make your way. Once you reach it, now there's, the whole complex of where the stoning takes place is 3 walls. Historically, there were pillars, and which weren't well designed. Now, alhamdulillah, they're very well designed. The complex has 3 floors, so they can accommodate as many Hajjis as come. And there are people, directing you to the ground floor above or whatever. And once you reach it, you stone the first wall. It's not a pillar anymore, it's a wall. So you stone it, and with each stoning, you say the takbir. And once you've finished that, you have, they call it tahleel al-asghar, meaning that, the minor, uh, things that were, certain things that were haram are not haram on you anymore. But once you finish, um, you've got to make sure of two things. Um, your sacrifice, uh, if you are doing a tamattu hajj, you've got to make sure that your sacrifice has been done for practical reasons, because majority of the Hajj packages will give the money for the sacrifice to the government. So you automatically accept that it has been done in your name. If you've arranged it yourself, then you've got to, make sure that it has been done. So once it's done, you then shave your head. Yeah. Once you've shaved your head, um, for for um, for men, the preference is that they shave it, and for the women, it is sunnah that 1 inch of their hair is cut. After that, you make your way to Mecca, and unless your what's it called, your group has arranged transport for you, because the government does not provide any transport from Mina to Mecca. So after the first stoning, making sure your sacrifice has been done, and shaving your head, now you've got to go to Mecca. And um, if you're fit enough, it's you're looking at about 12 kilometers. Yeah, so it's just under 10 miles. Um, a fit person can do it. Um, if you can't, then you'll pay, because the locals make quite a lot of money that day. You make your way to Mecca. When you get to Mecca, the way when we began the whole Hajj thing, when you get to Mecca, you from Hajar al Aswad, you will begin the tawaf, the 7 circuits, and then the 2 rakats at the end. Um, because you've already done the sa'i when you came, you don't have to do the sa'i anymore. After the 2 rakats, um, you will practically, you go back to your hotel if your hotel is in Mecca, or if it is in Azizia, where the budget packages, people, the companies keep you. You go back, take a shower, get out of this of ihram. Then you will put on, if you've bought some new clothes with you, you put clothes on, and then you come back to Mina, and you have to stay there for 3 days. What you've got to make sure, uh, in Muzdalifah, in Arafah, and at the stoning, and when you're at Mecca for the Tawaf al-Qudum, is that you do not push, shove, don't get angry, because you do not want to injure anyone's feelings or injure anyone physically. That's, uh, people usually ask, how do I know that, my Hajj has been accepted? Is, have, did you upset someone? Did you hurt anyone? Those are the things that you've got to keep in mind for your Hajj. After this, the only thing that's left now of the Hajj is the stoning, 3 days of stoning. Because the things that that were prohibited for you was women and hunting. Those after the Tawaf al-Qudum, that's lifted as well. What you've got to understand is that the hunting thing practically now is defunct, because there's no way, even if you had an opportunity, there's nothing there to hunt. So after that, you will return to Mina for the 3 days for the stoning. So that's where we are at 268 to 271, 268. Then return and pray Dhuhr at Mina and remain nights, meaning the 3 nights if possible. Immediately after the sun passes its zenith, you must go and stone. 269. The 3 jamarats, each with 7 pebbles, and stand making dua. 270. For a considerable time after the first 2. Then finish with the al-Aqaba, and for each stoning say Allahu Akbar. 271. Do likewise on the 3rd day and add, if you wish, a 4th day, and what was intended is now completed. So the stoning, yeah. Officially now, everyone's a Haji who's gone. Is that they return on the day of Eid from Mecca to Mina, and it is afdal, meaning more superior, better, that they pray Dhuhr in Mina. From a practical point of view, it's possible if you can if the transport is there. Otherwise, it's again, quite rightly, Sidi Meyara says in Amkin that if it is possible, you stay the rest of the days, the 3rd days after that, to stone, and you will stay there, because the wajib is to stay 3 nights for someone who is not in a hurry. For someone who is in a hurry, it's 2 nights. If you leave the staying at Mina in its entirety, then you have to need to spill sacrificial blood. So for the days that you are there, the 2 or the 3, at Dhuhr, at the Zawal, on the 2nd day, you will, walk in the state of wudu before Salatul Dhuhr, and there should be 21 pebbles with you, 21 stones. So you'll begin with the first Jumrah, which is closest to the mosque. By the way, just a note, the mosque marks the first Aqaba, meaning, when the Prophet ﷺ met the people of Medina, who later on became the Ansar, the mosque marks where the Prophet ﷺ first met them, the first year. Okay, so you will, the walls automatically, the way they have been built, they, when you stand facing them, you're facing the Qibla. So 7 on each, and with each takbir, each stone, you say Allahu Akbar as you throw it. Then again, you will move, to your left, and it's marked where you stand and make dua. Now, the amount of time you spent making the dua is a really long one. Sidi Meyara says the amount of time is if you were reading Surah Baqarah quickly. So you're looking at, over an hour. And no one stands there for an hour. But again, that's the time to open your heart. If there's anything left, even after the standing within you, you want to, that's where you let it out. Then you move to, the second one and the third one. After each, stoning, you move to the left and you make dua. And again, to the final one. If you are, in a hurry, because this would be, the third day from Arafah. So Arafah was, on the 9th. So you're there the night of the 9th, 10th, and 11th. Most Hajj companies will, pack their bags and take you back to the hotel. If you arrange it so that you want to stay the 3 nights after Arafah, then you need to make those arrangements. It's conditional that if someone is in a hurry, they leave Mina before sunset on the 3rd day. That's when, as I said, majority of the packages will take you out. If the sun sets on the 2nd day, 3rd day, then you will have to stay for the 4th day. And on the 4th day, you will, again, stone the 3 places of stoning, and then you will leave from Mina. Now, the next description that Sidi Mayara does, again, practically it's not possible. Why? Because the logistics are provided by the state, and they do not stop. So if you're in Azizia, they will pick you up from there and take you into Mecca, whatever you are going after that. So Sidi Mayara says that, so when you leave from Mina, you reach Abtah, you stop there, and he says it's recommended that you pray Dhuhr and Asr and Maghrib and Isha, shortening the 4 rakats. And once you've prayed them, and then after Isha, you make your way to Mecca. And he says it's recommended to do, an abundant amount of tawaf, as long as, you are in Mecca, and to drink a lot of Zamzam and to make wudu, and attach yourself, in prayer to the Jamaat, in the first Jamaat. If you haven't done Umrah, then you should do Umrah. And inshallah, we'll cover that when we get to that one, inshallah. Okay. Now, has any of you done Hajj or Umrah?
I was 10 years old, Sidi. I don't know if it counts.
No.
I've done Umrah.
You've done Umrah? Okay,
yeah.
That's fine. Okay. So up to here in I'm just looking. Hopefully, we might be able to. Yeah, inshallah. If we finish the book of Hajj today, I would. Next week, not next week, the week after. So make a note. I would like you to walk me through Hajj. Why it? Because I've not tested you on anything else. So why the test on Hajj? It's once in your lifetime. So if you know it, it's good. Once you know it, it's like driving. You might get rusty, but you won't lose it. Yeah. Okay. The next section, these next two verses, 272 and 273. The state of Ihram prohibits hunting on land, and compensation has to be paid if killed, but not like mice, scorpions, vultures, wild beasts, snakes or crows, if they are causing harm. Yeah. Now, these two verses, they're covering something, hunting. Hunting has become academic now because this whole thing is defunct. But we will cover it because there's other... it's, again, information. It just shows you how, what modernity has done. Yeah. And how, because everything has become a package, and what has been lost. Yes, Saifuddin.
What did they used to hunt in the desert?
They had, ostriches. What's it called? Gazelles. They would kill, foxes and things like that, not for eating, but just for hunting. But as we go through, the animals he mentions, it's like elephants. It's unheard of. Abraha was the first one to bring them there. But they're still in the books. But again, it's something that is academic now. Okay. So Sidi Mayara says that, we've already covered the wajibat, which are other than, the arkan. The wajibat are what can be repaired with spilling sacrificial blood. And for the Hajj are actions which are required, and these are divided into 3. Yeah. And there are actions which are, forbidden. And, the following 10 verses are the ones that are going to cover this. So these 10 verses are going to cover things that are prohibited. Now, the prohibitions are divided into 3. They're actually more than that, but, it's I think 6, but Sidi Meyara says 3, so let's stick with that. The first one is prohibition, which corrupts the Hajj. Yeah. Now, by corruption, it means it invalidates it. So what invalidates the Hajj is sexual intercourse. So that's the first division. The second prohibition is it won't invalidate it, but it will corrupt it to a degree that, it can be repaired. So it can be repaired by spilling sacrificial blood. So whatever you do, you replace it with that. Meaning, because we're dealing with hunting, so whatever you hunt, you will replace it with that by a sacrifice. And that's what we're going to be covering, inshallah. So those are the two. Both these categories are, haram. Yeah, they're prohibited. The third degree of prohibition is actually not, Sidi Mayara uses the word mahdhur, which means haram, but it actually means makruh, what he tells us. Why he's put it in this is because these things are not wajib, but they're still required from the Hajj. So this is what's understood. And so the first and second categories are haram. The third category is again mahdhur, is prohibited, but what it means is it's makruh. So the first two are haram, and the third one is makruh. Yeah. So the first category by hunting, they're talking about land animals. Yeah, land animals, not sea creatures. It's haram upon the one in the state of ihram, and they're limited to, they're not just limited to domesticated animals, which the meat can be eaten, but they are wild animals, domesticated animals, owned, people have captured them, or animals that are you're permitted to keep them. They can be and the categories they're looking at are Scorpios, scorpions, vultures, wild beast. By this they mean wild dogs as well, snakes, crows. Those are exempted. Why they're exempted is because they come in a hadith that the Prophet ﷺ exempted them. So even leopards, wolves. Now coming to, if you hunt and you kill the animal, so the example, you kill an ostrich, you have to sacrifice a camel. You kill an elephant, you have to sacrifice, again, a camel. If you kill, a wild donkey, it's a cow, or something that will come close to that. You kill a hyena or a fox, it's a goat or a sheep. The rule changes with the wild pigeons in Mecca. For every pigeon you kill, you will have to pay for a sacrifice of a goat or a sheep. Why the rule changes is because that is the house of God. Yeah, the rest are in the sanctuary, from the miqat to Mecca, but because the pigeons are in the sanctuary itself in the mosque. That's why for each one you will have to pay for a sheep or a goat. What happens to the meat? The meat is distributed between the abject poor of that area. So you've done something wrong, the locals will benefit from it. If you can't sacrifice, then you will have to fast. Okay. So that was, the first category of, things that are prohibited to hunt. As I said, it's academic, but we're dealing with it. The next category is verses 274, 275, and 276. It is proscribed, meaning it's forbidden, the wearing of clothing which are sewn or something woven, or something woven which is fixed with a button or a clasp or a ring, 274. 275, or covering the face or head with anything which may be properly termed a covering, but it only prohibits a woman wearing gloves in addition to covering her face, but not if she takes a veil. Yeah? Okay. Now, this is again, so the first prohibition was that of, hunting and sexual intercourse as well. We'll come to that later. The second one, this is on the type of clothes, the one who is beginning the Hajj. Now, this is in regard to men and women. So it's haram for a man to cover, his face, his head, other than, all of the rest of his body, will be covered, with the two sheets, one covering his waist and the other, his torso. But it's forbidden for him to, cover his head or his face. And it's also, so anything sewn is also forbidden. It's also haram for him to cover his face or his head with an imama or a hat or a piece of cloth or bandage or, mud or anything like that. It's also haram for him to, envelope his body or some of his body with a long shirt, a qameez, or an overcoat, or a cloak, or wear trousers, wear a ring, or wear gloves, or khuf, leather socks. He's permitted to wear leather socks if he doesn't have sandals, where he will, cut from, the back bit of it that covers the heel and the ankles and all that. So what's meant by, sewn is anything, that is tied, woven, what generally will be normal clothes that we wear. So if anyone has those, and they don't have reason for it, they will end up, we'll cover it in a minute. So what they're permitted is a waist wrapper and, something to cover their torso. It's also haram on a woman to cover, her face and her hands. Also to, a niqab, a face veil, or a mask. However, she's permitted, if she has, something that, is in front of her face but not on her face. The best way to understand this is, those baseball caps that people wear. So you put a baseball cap on and then, a veil or something covering that. Now, if they make any, if they use a veil or whatever, they will have to pay fidya. Unless, there's a reason for it, it's too cold, so they're wearing gloves, or it's too hot. It doesn't matter if they are, forced into that action or they do it out of choice. If they are forced, there isn't a sin. If they do it out of choice, it is a sin. They will have to pay a fidya, and we'll cover fidya later on, inshallah. About, the clothing for men, in the text it says it's haram, literally. Yeah, mana. So there's a prohibition. I can't see, unless, certain people are, the only situation that comes to mind is, people who've got really bad eczema or psoriasis or something, skin disease, where it will dry the skin out really badly. In that scenario, there's license that could be given, but again, it would be, you would look at, the case and take it from there, inshallah. Okay, now it's Maghrib in a minute, so I'm going to take a break for 10 minutes, and inshallah, after Maghrib, we'll carry on, inshallah. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi. So, verses 277 and 278. Prohibited also is perfume and oil, killing lice or removing dirt, nails or hair. 278. And compensation must be paid if any of the above mentioned occurs from sold clothing right up to here, even if he has a valid excuse. Okay. So this is, the third section of prohibitions, which the third would come under what we would say makruhat. So the one in the state of ihram is prohibited to make use of a perfume or scent. This prohibition is the use of female scent, opposite to male scent. So we're looking at any scent or perfume being applied to the physical body or the clothes. So this is an incomplete list of female scent. You can tell me if you agree with it or not. Musk, amber, camphor, oud. Wars is a yellow dye, and saffron. So that's what Sidi Mayara has, and he quotes Sidi Khalil from his work on Hajj, which is called the Hajj rites, the manasik. He says, as to male scent, so male scent is rose, jasmine. There is no fidya for it because it's only makruh. So the prohibition is on female scent. So look, so we're looking at just under 700 years since Sidi Khalil. So I think no one will say that, rose or jasmine are male perfumes rather than, but again, it is what it is. Different cultures have different, it's like oud. Oud is a very masculine, now it's seen as a very masculine scent, and musk as well. But again, okay. He quotes from the Jawahir, again, it's a very famous book on Maliki Fiqh. He says, what this means is the use of perfume or scent, which is attached to the hand or clothes. Yeah. Now, the intensity of the scent it is more to do with if you were sitting, in the shop of a perfume seller, or his house is next to, a perfume seller or where it's made. There's no fidya for that. It's only, karaha, makruh. What obligates fidya, compensation, recompense, not compensation, recompense, is the use of scent and applying it. And applying it, on your hands and on your body and clothes, not, if something is attached to it or it falls on you because you're rushing through. Now, in these scenarios, there are two opinions of does it obligate recompense or not? There are two positions. The mashhur position is that it obligates. However, there's no fidya for someone who has applied the scent before going into the state of ihram. So he's washed himself off or whatever, but there's some scent remaining after he's gone into them. So in that scenario, it's makruh. Now, it's also makruh where, something gets thrown on you because you're rushing through. And if he, if he just pushes it off, and there's something on his hands, it's fine. If he doesn't, and there's a delay in him removing the perfume on his person, then there is a recompense that is due from them. So that's the third category of prohibitions. Yes, Saifuddin.
What's the ruling on antiperspirant sprays or roll-ons?
In a state of ihram?
Yeah.
No way. Not allowed. You're not
So it
allowed.
takes the same ruling as perfume.
Yeah.
The antiperspirant that stops you from sweating.
Because the thing is, you're going to sweat anyway. You're going to be out in the sun. And that's the reason why, just throwing water on yourself is permitted, while you can't rub in the state of ihram. So at Arafah, even at Mina, when you're at Mina after Arafah, you can take a proper shower. It's not a problem. But once you're out of the state of ihram, it's, you're back to normal. But in the state of ihram, no kind of scent is permitted at all.
And how about unscented antiperspirant?
Still, you're just trying to get around it.
Okay.
So they're not, because what you've got to understand is that there's a leveling. Not how Boris is leveling, but everyone is in the same state. They got two sheets of clothes, and everyone, and you're not supposed to smell perfume or scent. So in the morning, or when you get back in Arafah, you can even in the day, if you're not on the mountain where the tents are, you can go and pour a bucket of water on you. It's not a problem. But
Okay.
no. Okay.
I also guess like moisturizers are also prohibited.
We're coming to that.
Okay.
But what you've got to understand with the moisturizers, or it's if there's certain people have got these routines. The whole thing of Hajj is to break your routines. Yeah. Okay. So the fourth prohibition is someone who is in the state of ihram applying oil. Yeah. So this is making use of oil while in the state of ihram on your beard, your head, even if they're bald, or any other part of the body. It obligates a fidya. You've got to pay a recompense, even if it is not scented. However, if there is a need, then fine. So what's exempted is applying oil at the sole of your feet, because you've been standing for so long. It does. I don't know if you've tried it. If you do oil your feet of your soles of your feet, you will actually have a better rest than not applying them, especially if you've been on your feet all day. This is, if they are correct, it should be without, any cent, and there's no fidya for that. So this is from this ruling, Saifuddin, your thing of moistures is there, moisturizers. The same would fall in the same category as oil. So if there's a need, for instance, people who suffer from psoriasis or, other skin disease like eczema, they will be permitted because, they have to. Otherwise, no. Yeah. As for eating, butter or, oil, that does not fall in this category. That's permitted anyway. Okay. That was the fourth. Now the fifth prohibition, this is, I've written here, personal hygiene. This is, prohibition in the state of ihram for someone, removing, what we would say, things that are considered luxury or indulgences. Like, people have their own hygiene routines. So, however, you're permitted to, remove lice and kill it. However, you're not permitted. Yeah, you're not permitted to remove, dirt, cut your nails, remove hair. So if you remove hair or anything from these matters, they're all prohibited. We've already covered, on hunting. So if you do, for instance, removing dirt or cutting your trimming your nails, removing physical, bodily, facial, or head hair, there's a fidya for it. And also likewise there is a fidya for wearing clothes, normal clothes instead of an ihram, unless there is a valid reason. I know people who have bad eczema. They need to. So there is, Sidi Mayara says, there's an obligation of fidya in all these matters. There's no difference that you did it for an excuse or not. Now, if someone who has an excuse and he did it out of, duress, then it's not a sin. But if you did it out of choice, it's a sin, and Allah knows best. Now, the fidya, which is an obligation from the actions which have been covered, so the fidya is one of these three. So the first of them is, sacrificing an animal. So the animal which takes priority is, a sheep or a camel. Sheep or goat. Then a cow, and then a camel. Yeah. The second category of recompense is feeding 60 people. 2 muds of the mud of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the third is fasting 3 days. And it doesn't matter if you are rich or poor. So the choice is yours. You either, sacrifice an animal, you feed 60 people, or you fast 3 days. That's, the recompense. Yes, Tamiz. Oh, both of you have got. So, Tahmiz put his hand first, then Saifuddin. Go on.
Sheikh, so if a person does two actions that require fidya, is that fidya doubled? So if he misses out 1 and 2, that means he might have to fast 6 days instead of 3.
Again, what happens is the total you're going to be fasting is 10 days. And, the fidya, it doesn't pile up like, for instance, when you break your fast, however many fasts you break, you only will fast 2 consecutive months. Or, feed 60 people. So however many fasts you break. And it's the same here, depending on, what you've done. If you've, had sexual intercourse, your Hajj is invalid. The only way you go around that one is you've got to come back the next year. About, what you've done is if the animal would go up rather than, how much, how many recompense you have to pay. So rather than, getting away with sacrificing a sheep or a goat, you might have to sacrifice a cow or a camel. Other than that, it does not, multiply. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense, Sheikh. Thank you.
Yeah. Saifuddin.
Which has a greater maslaha, the feeding the 60 people or sacrificing a goat or sheep?
In this, when it comes to Hajj, the maslaha was in sacrificing the animal, because the thing is, it will feed more than 60 people. Because the big animal, the camel or the goat. No, I mean, sorry, the camel or the cow. Yeah.
So you'd want to ideally sacrifice a camel.
Yeah, or a cow.
Okay, so you don't need to actually sacrifice a goat. So you can go straight to a camel.
Yeah, it's up to you.
Okay.
Yeah, but they go up in increments. So first is a shart, which is a goat or a camel, then a cow, and then a camel.
Yeah, but you have the choice. You can go straight to the camel. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, Tahmiz.
If a person were to sacrifice an animal, wouldn't he indirectly be feeding 60 people as well if he was to?
No. Because I'll tell you what the Saudi government does. It sacrifices the animal, and then it used to can. I don't know if they still do, but they would they send the meat abroad to poorer countries, which goes against the whole thing of the Hajj was that the people on Hajj, the poor Hajjis would benefit because they didn't have that. But now, alhamdulillah, the amount of free food that is there, there's no need for that. So they send it to the poorer countries. Yes.
Just out of interest, how much is a camel?
I got no idea, because the price is set by the Saudi government. Because you would, unless you are doing it, privately, you can, if you've got contacts, you can arrange for your own sacrifice to be done there. And by the way, if anybody goes on Hajj or Umrah, the poverty in Mecca is there. All you've got to do is just go out of your way up the mountains and you'll see the poor. And the Saudi government, by design, all the foreign families historically that were there, they've gradually taken away their benefits. So it's as I said, if you go up the mountains, you will see the poverty. Inshallah. Okay. Anything else? Okay. We move on to 279 and 280. 279 and 280. Also prohibited is women and intercourse invalidates, and this prohibition lasts until the Tawaf al-Ifada. 280, as for hunting, then the other things which are prohibited for him, these are rendered halal at the stoning of the Jamarat al-Ula, so heed these instructions. We've covered most of this already, but again, it's this is the end. This is the sixth prohibition, and this, completes the 10 verses that cover the prohibition. And this is specifically, people who are in the state of ihram, women are prohibited, meaning coming close to them. And what's included in this is the closeness of sexual intercourse or foreplay, or the marriage contract being, the nikah being done. What you've got to understand is that, outwardly from nikah, it doesn't make sense, does it? Because if the nikah is, if you have your nikah done, there's no sexual intercourse taking place, is there? But this is where, our understanding is limited, because the nikah contract is incomplete until it is consummated. So that's why the prohibition is there. That's the understanding of the Madhab Imam Malik radiallahu anhu, that nikah is prohibited as well. It doesn't matter how you have sexual intercourse, front, back, ejaculation or not, forgetfully. I find that a hard one. How you're going to have it, forgetfully or by design. If you are coerced or you do it obediently, or if you are the one doing it or the one being done to you, all of these are prohibited. And this invalidates Hajj and Umrah. Yeah. Also, kissing, feeling, even if where there's no penetrative sex, or holding, feeling a woman's genitals, or inserting something, or masturbating with the hand, or taking pleasure from looking or thinking. All of these are prohibited, because if you it's difficult for someone to come close, because the ultimate thing is they will lead to sexual intercourse. So anything that will lead to sexual intercourse will also be prohibited. The nikah again is prohibited, but it does not invalidate the Hajj. Yeah, the nikah is mamnu, is prohibited, but it does not invalidate the Hajj. However, it will obligate a hadi. Where you come across this word hadi is Hadi, or in Arabic is ha dal alif maksura. wherever you come across that will, where the word hadi is there, is a camel. Yeah, it's a big animal. So the big animal with the Arabs, they didn't have that many cows. They had a lot of camels. So you do a nikah, it obligates a hadi. Yes.
So when you say nikah, that means consummation as well.
No.
So this is, sorry.
Here, if you just have the nikah done, yeah, because just the nikah done, because it's very likely might lead to it. So that's why you pay recompense for it.
Okay,
But
so
if just the nikah, without without it being consummated. If you consummate it, it will invalidate your Hajj straight away.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you come close to your wife in any way, it will obligate. It's prohibited anyway, but it will obligate a hadi. It will obligate a big sacrifice. And it's the Hajj being invalidated or Umrah being invalidated is specific with penetrative sex. Now, if it happens after when you come from Muzdalifah and you stone the first wall, if it happens after that, it does not invalidate the Hajj. It will obligate. You will have to pay a hadi, but it will not invalidate the Hajj. But if it happens before, it will invalidate it. Because once you stone the first stoning, that's the minor things that were halal upon you, haram upon you, become halal, apart from women and hunting. But so if it happens before, it will invalidate. Yeah. If you do it before the stoning, it will obligate that you do an umrah, but you will have to come the next year and do the Hajj again. The first one will be invalidated. And you will also have to sacrifice, a camel, a hadi, for having, done what you did the year before. Okay. About the Umrah, I really find it strange because, a lot of these are case notes, if you can understand. It must have happened how someone, doing Umrah, before he does, the 2 rakats after the tawaf, has sexual intercourse, because it will invalidate your Umrah. About the hadi is always, the recommendation is always, camel, then cow, then goat. It's the other way around. Yeah. And if they can't, if they don't have the means to sacrifice, then they will fast 10 days. Yeah. And it's an obligation upon them. Until they, do it. If they, the ideal about, the sacrifice, it used to happen. Historically, they would sacrifice them, they would stone and then go back to Arafah and do the sacrifice there. Now, everything is changed. They get slaughtered in a factory. Okay. After the ifada, the only thing that remains is, the hunting. After, the tawaful ifada, everything becomes halal. Again, as I said, hunting now is historic. So after that, women and scent, all of it become halal for you. As to, the hair, I don't know if you've noticed, there are certain scholars, you'll notice they have long hair, and every year they go on Hajj. They pay to not cut their hair. So if you don't want to shave your hair or cut them, you've got to sacrifice an animal. Yes, everything.
Is that discouraged to pay for something?
The thing is that, it's a nafs thing. It's a good thing, to have your head, it's part of the rites of Hajj. But, if you read in Surah Fat, Surah Fat, where God talks about, those who cut their hair and those who shave their hair, Allah doesn't find any fault with them. But that was specific to those companions, because after the Hudaybiyah, the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, certain Sahaba didn't shave their hair because they said, look, we didn't go on Hajj. So they just cut them, and Allah said, look, it's not a problem. It's better if you don't. Yeah? It's better if you do shave it rather than, but again, certain people like their hair, so you pay for the luxury of having it long. 281. This is the final of, the prohibited actions. It is permitted to shade oneself with something raised, but not a litter or a shukduf, a sedan. So take note. I think you're familiar with a dolly, aren't you? No? A palanquin? Okay. Well, historically, there would be chair with two poles attached to it, and 4 men would carry it, and there would be a covering right round it, so no one would know. Yeah? And so if you go back to, when we were talking about the prohibitions, for a man, it's he can't cover his head with anything. Yeah. So if you're sitting on a chair which is covered, then no. If you've got, like an umbrella, the straightforward of the mother would be no, but they would allow you shade that doesn't move with you. For instance, if there's a tree or a building, you can sit in the shade, but you couldn't, have an umbrella that you're raising yourself. Is there a compensation of it? Again, this is the beauty of the madhab, is that, they will say it's not permitted for you to have, anything portable that covers your head, which is the mashhur. But is there a compensation, recompense for it? It's not wajib and it's not mandu, it's recommended. Yeah? There's 2 positions. Both of them are mashhur. One is that you don't pay anything. One is that you do pay. Yeah. And when you get the choice where something is easy and something is hard, you always choose the easy, and especially when there's no it's only a recommendation. You can stay within the madhab and still use an umbrella, because there's a difference of opinion on this. Nowadays, we can't get away from the transport that is used to take you from A to B. You're in the state of ihram, and you're taken from Mecca to Arafah on the day of Arafah. It's a coach, so it's got a roof. The only people who are sticklers with this on this point are the Shia. They have roofless buses, so them the government provides them. So it is possible, but none of our Hajj companies will do that. Okay. So we're okay on that one. Yes, Saifuddin.
What if there's really heavy rain or hail, as rare as that is as rare as that is?
I've got there's no record of it raining in the summer in Mecca. And as I said, it's only the Shia who have roofless buses. The Sunnis don't have them. And
I meant as in the umbrellas, if it starts to rain heavily.
As I said, it will be seen as a sign of mercy rather than anything else, raining on the day of Arafah. But it doesn't rain that hard in the Arabian peninsula. But if it does, again, it's one of those things. As I said, that you're not going outside of the madhab if you do use an umbrella. And there, companies, and I hate this, the commercialism that is attached to these. They will, give you free umbrellas with their logos on it or with their colors on it. So take it or leave it. It's your choice. Yes, Tahmiz.
I just want to clarify. So everything besides sexual intercourse is allowed after the first Jamrat, and after Tawaf al-Ifada, that's when intercourse is allowed.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're
welcome. Okay. Because we took some time for Maghrib, 10 minutes more, inshallah. Because we'll finish the Umrah, because 282, 283, 284, and 285. 282. Perform the Sunnah of the Umrah as the Hajj. It is recommended to put on the Ihram at-Tanim. Immediately following your sa'i, shave or trim. Leave the state of Ihram and perform the Tawaf frequently. 284. As long as you are in Mecca, take care to observe the sanctity as well as the house. Increase your acts of service to God. Yeah, and maintain the Salat in Jama'ah when you are resolved to leave the Tawaf. When you're resolved to make the Tawaf, when you're resolved to leave, make the Tawaf as you have learned of above. The Umrah as a Shari Hukm is a Sunnah Mu'akkada once in your lifetime only. Yeah. It's recommended that you go put on the Ihram from Tanim, and And we've already covered, how to do the ghusl, pray the 2 rakats, and begin the talbiyah. You will do that again. Wearing clothes and scent again becomes haram. Once you go into the state of the ihram, you will do the talbiyah, then the tawaf, and the rumble, the first 3 circuits, and then you will do 2 rakats after the tawaf, and you will do the sa'i exactly like you did for Hajj. Once you finish from the sa'i, you will, shave your head, or shorten your hair. However, shaving the head is, better, afdal. So after you've done, your umrah, that's if you didn't do it, at the beginning. Once you've done the umrah, then as long as you are in Mecca, you should do as many, tawaf. That's the recommendation. Do as many tawaf as possible. Yeah. Don't, with the Hanafis, they will go into as many, umrahs as possible. With us, is do many tawaf as possible. Yeah. Keep you here as long as you are there. Just because the reward of everything you do in Mecca is, multiplied by God knows how much. The punishment is you've got to be careful that, there's no, obscenities, careful of your language, careful of, sinning. Yeah. Make sure that, you are doing as much ibadah as possible. And, you are serving Allah by obeying His commands and staying and doing what and keeping away from what He has asked you to keep away from. You attach to the prayer, so you make sure that you pray your prayer in Jamaat. Don't, get into this mentality that, some of the Hanafis from the subcontinent have, where they won't pray in Jamaat. Pray in Jamaat and do as many tawaf as possible. Now, this has brought us to the end of the Hajj and the Umrah. So what's left is visiting the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which we will cover next week. So after next week, you will have 2 weeks to prepare. And I would like to, all you've got to do is from the miqat, what you need to start learning. From the miqat, the ghusl, the 2 rakats, then, going into your intention for Hajj, and then, arriving at Mecca, what do you do? And then from Mecca, going to Arafah, what happens in Arafah, then from Arafah to Muzdalifah, then from Muzdalifah to Mina, then back to Mecca, and then from Mecca back to Mina, and staying there for 3 days stoning. Yeah? Inshallah. Okay. If no one's got any questions, we'll call it a day, inshallah. And we'll meet next week, inshallah. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.